SyFy Sistas are now sponsored by Comics, located at 313 Halsted Avenue, Harrison, New York. Comics celebrates and promotes everything that is wonderful about comics, toys, artwork, and the joy they bring to people.
Positive and upbeat, they invite you to come in and experience their selection and atmosphere.
Looking for something new and different to read? Their staff is always willing to help you find a book that will put a spring in your step and get you hooked on something new.
If you have children and have been looking for a family-friendly store, look no further.
With awesome events like creator signings and Facebook Live sales, where you can find everything from mainstream comics to collectibles to hard-to-find editions. Make Comics your comics destination.
Their customers are the most important part of the business, and they want to hear from you as well. So give them a call at 914-732-3600. That's 914-732-3600.
Comics. Let's be awesome together.
Hi, family. Welcome to the SyFy Sistas podcast, where we give you our point of view. We are proud members of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and we are so excited to bring you this show today. I'm Tamia Harper, and I'm joined by my sister, Sabrina Wood.
Whoop, whoop.
And Yvette Blackman-Tom.
Hello.
Okay, listeners, you are in for a treat. We have a show in store for you today. They have a wonderful guest that we are so excited to bring to you. She's a critical race sociologist, author, and educator who many of us came to learn from and lean on during these past few troublesome years and that critical summer of reckoning. She is a professor of sociology at SUNY Stony Brook, where she teaches courses on racism and ethnic relations, sociological theory, and qualitative methods. Her books include Resurrecting Slavery, Racial Legacies and White Supremacy in France, How to Be Less Stupid About Race, on racism, white supremacy, and the racial divide, and her latest book aimed at young adults, which just released this October, Rise Up, How You Can Join the Fight Against White Supremacy. Ladies and gents and variations thereupon, please welcome Dr. Crystal Marie Fleming.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you.
We are so excited to have you with us. Now, I know from the tweets and everything that that you just finished watching Deep Space Nine.
Yes, and I didn't want to watch it for a long time. I put it off. I was a TNG stan. I grew up on Picard. Picard was my captain. I didn't want to hear nothing about no Sisko. Didn't want to hear about no space station.
Sister.
I know. Many people explained to me that I was missing out on something, and they were right.
So let me ask you this. You never watched Spencer for Hire? You didn't know Avery Brooks was Hawk?
No.
Or nothing? All right. Okay. I just want to know. Just ask.
I did not. So
asking for a friend.
The whole backstory about like how he appeared on the show and how they didn't want him to look like the character he had played and all that. I didn't know anything about that. So new to Avery Brooks. I'm ashamed to say it, but I was new to Avery Brooks and his genius.
You know what? The only thing that matters is that you're not new to Avery Brooks now.
Anymore.
That you are hip to the jazz that is Avery Brooks that runs through all of us.
And there's more than Jean-Luc Picard. There's so much more.
There's so much more. I've thank goodness I got into Discovery as well. I'm very safe about the new season. But yeah, I mean, gosh, I don't even know where y'all want to start. But it's I took a good long time to watch DS9 this year. I think I pretty much started over the summer. And gave myself a few months to really, really savor the series.
I think that's what it deserves and what it needs. I think it's one of the reasons why all these years later, because I was an original watcher of DS9 when it first came out. I watched it first run. It immediately became my Star Trek. I had grown up on watching original Trek in reruns, in the 70s. And then TNG came on. So that was the Trek that I had around me all the time. And then DS9 came on and I was like, there's a black man running everything. And it was so different in tone. then TNG, I was immediately sucked in. I was like, okay, this is my show. This is my show. But like DS9, just like a fine wine, gets better with time.
Fine. I am sipping them now. It's interesting with DS9, just like you described. I mean, granted, I was able to binge watch it, even though I took my time, but I could, watch back to back. You old heads who really watched it back in the day, you had to wait week to week, right?
Hey,
I mean,
that's right.
And summer's off. And summer's
had
off.
to pay attention.
Right.
I mean, that's real dedication, but it's also, as everyone knows now, that serialized storytelling, which was a huge contrast with TNG. And people kept telling me, like, you're going to love the storytelling, the narrative arcs, and serialized stories. And I didn't want to hear it. I loved the idea of TNG. You just get a nice packaged story. It doesn't matter really which episode you're watching. You'll get it all wrapped up with a bow. But DS9 was really innovative. I now could appreciate at the time. And it just sucks you in. And I don't know who my captain is at this point, I have to say. Picard. I grew up on Picard. I don't know. But
there's no shame. I mean, whichever one brought you in.
There's no shame. There's no shame.
Yeah,
all
but Sisko. I feel like that's all that needs to be said. But Sisko.
Well, I think interestingly, and, I was tweeting about this, I don't know, some weeks ago. We can get into if you like. And I felt like it's kind of weird for people who watched it so long ago to be talking about it all these years later. It's been decades, but like you said, I imagine it's like a fine wine. But with Sisko, there's something in the way that the writers fleshed out his humanity, right? Beyond just being a captain, you get the father, you get the son, you get his, his growing spirituality in a way. You get, his ease with children, right? It's a much more fleshed out character than Picard in many ways.
Yeah.
And yet there was something for me in the Black respectability politics of the role that I felt nevertheless was somewhat constraining with Sisko. I felt that he was always kind of in the confines of some genre of Black respectability, even if they pushed against it, right? By letting him have his goatee, letting him have the bald head, despite, right, the anti-Blackness that would have prevented him from being able to just inhabit that presentation of Black manhood. But there was something in him that was respectable that I felt like with Picard, I think his sexuality and his sensuality was more developed sometimes in some respects than Sisko, even though Sisko had his, deep relationships with two women in particular. And that's just my quick take, but I love DS9. It's something I plan to, I warned my partner, I'm like, honey, she's not a Trekkie. I'm like, this is just going to be on the background for a long, like it's just going to be on.
Well, I think that's such an interesting point that you bring up about the respectability. And I think that, I think really at the time, it can be constrained when you have to be the spokesperson, the role model, the example, the one example in all of TV. At that time, DS9 got no love for being so far ahead of its time in that respect, about having a Black lead of the show who really demonstrated all this Black love with his son. I forget what that art.
And with his father.
And with his father, exactly, which is a beautiful relationship, like really intimate, really gentle, very supportive, very real. They did have the responsibility to show, like you said, that respectability, because we had so many Black characters in other roles on TV that were such negative portrayals. And then Avery Brooks really did take a lot of time to craft how he was portrayed on the show, and what elements of Black and African history were portrayed and infused throughout the show, and his relationship with Jake Sisko. I think at the time, like it sort of had to be, like we didn't have the ability, the freedom,
Yeah.
really,
I mean,
to portray ourselves any other way.
That's the burden of being a trailblazer.
Oh,
I think.
And even the very first episode, Emissary, in that one time that he did give that little bit of rebellion and snap back at Picard, fans went crazy.
Did they really?
Yes.
They were mad at Sisko.
I was there, okay? Yes. People were talking about how could he disrespect Picard? How could he come up to him like that? He should have shown more respect. And I was like, oh, I can't wait for this show. This is going to be good. Because I'm from Boston, and Spencer Fahaya was Boston, so we were into Hawk. And when we heard that Hawk was going to be on Star Trek, my world aligned.
Yeah.
So he came right in talking smack to Picard. I was like, I'm going to take that little granule, and I can live with that for the next 7 years.
Yeah. He was my captain the minute, because I'm not a Picard fan. So the minute he went off on Picard and told him where he stood up. That was the black man for me. I was like, see, I see that. I see a black man doing that, because it's like, I don't give two shits no more. My wife is dead.
Yeah.
You put me on this space station. Listen, this is not what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do for me. I was like, see, this is it. This is my show. This is it right here. Right here.
Not to mention,
go ahead.
I was saying, I take great love in listening to every scene where Sisko dresses down one of his command, and I don't think anyone does it quite as well as Sisko. I mean, he even put Worf in his place, and I know Picard has done it too, but Sisko has just a way of doing it.
And there's a dignity in his bearing that commands respect in a way that was unprecedented in television. And in some ways, I think still is. It's also Avery Brooks is a badass, incredible actor.
He really is.
And he is. Not knowing him personally, what I've seen from interviews, he seems to be in his presentation very different in some ways than the character of Sisko, in some ways, and which makes the portrayal and the performance even more incredible. You used jazz earlier to describe Avery Brooks, and a lot of people do, but I don't think that comes through so much in Captain Sisko. It's very not jazz. There's something else. There's something else in the portrayal, which I think also just speaks to Brooks's genius. Yeah, I mean, listen, as a Picard stan, that first scene where, they have that kind of confrontation, I felt he was absolutely justified. I mean, his wife was killed. I thought that the writing for Picard, it was very strange. It made it seem as though Picard almost was still in his Borg mode, where he had no feeling. He did not seem to care about the human tragedy that he had been a part of enacting. Which I don't know if it was actually true to the character of Picard. It could have been, but I thought they seem to have written him in a way where it's like you're out of pocket, right? I mean, he was out of pocket.
I always thought that Picard, I understand exactly what you mean about that scene, and I always thought of that scene as Picard was just so guilt-ridden about what had happened that he just goes into like I'm just not going to talk about it, kind of like I can't deal with it. Yeah, I can't deal with it. He's like, I am face to face now with someone whose wife died because I was the cutest of Borg. What am I going to say to this guy? I can't say shit to him.
I'm sure that wasn't the first person.
No, not. But that's the scene that we saw.
That's the first person we saw, but there was no way that was the first person he had to deal with.
Right. So I always loved that scene because I can just, I'm a Picard fan. I mean, I love Next Gen. Listen, I love all the captains, but I'll tell you right now, Kirk's my captain. I'm going to say right now, my captain is the shat every day. Okay, that's over. But yeah, I just love that. I love both of those actors. I think Patrick Stewart and Avery Brooks going toe to toe. I don't care what they wrote. It's going to be.
Do you think we're going to get to see that in Picard? Like, do you think it's going to happen?
I do. I believe it.
I need this.
I believe Sisko will be in Picard. I believe it. I'm just saying that. I'm saying it. I don't know anything. I'm just saying.
We're just throwing it out there. And
we have watched that thing. Yeah.
If you're listening,
and we know you are.
We're listening. We'd love to see it.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I think that you guys are right. I mean, I think that's one of the things that actually I mourn about that first episode is that I don't get more scenes with Patrick Stewart and Avery Brooks together.
Yeah.
I mean, I just would have loved to. I would have eaten that up. I mean, so let's jump forward in Deep Space Nine. We get bald Avery. We get him. We get bald Avery with the goatee. So we get him finally in his power, somewhat similar to Sonequa Martin Green getting her natural hair and stepping into her power as Michael Burnham. Like I see some similarities there because when we first see Michael Burnham, right, she's all Vulcaned out, right? Like, so she's white-sized with, the straight hair with this really tight, like very, right, precise cut, and then the freer she becomes, the freer her hair gets, and the more expression. And she's talked about how that was a direct and conscious decision, and so I guess if there's a question in there, which I don't really know that there is, I guess the question would be, do you have any thoughts about this expression of power and Blackness as it regards their physical appearance, or how it meant for what you saw when you were watching Deep Space Nine for the first time? How did it have an impact on you at all?
Well, I mean, I'll just be blunt. I enjoyed Sisko in the very first episodes. I thought he looked a little corny. Right? He didn't seem right. Like you can tell when he comes. What season is it when he comes and he has the bald head and the goatee? Is it like season?
I think it's 3 or 4.
Three. I think it's 3.
I think.
My partner, who I said is not a Trekkie, but she, come in and watch sometimes. She saw the beginning of one of the first episodes of like season 4 where he has the goatee, and she's like, "Who's that? Who that man?" I'm thinking that's Captain Sisko. She's like, "No, she's like, who that handsome man? That is Sisko. That is still Sisko." But so he definitely had his swagger when he could just be himself as an actor in the role. And I mean, thoughts about all of this. What I would say, and none of this, is rocket science, but I think it bears saying, like one of the core elements of anti-Blackness and anti-Black racism is the policing of our bodies, right? Many different kinds of policing, how we can present it, how proximate that presentation is to norms and ideals defined by white people, particularly white people with money. The policing of how we move, where we move, what we wear. And so, of course, we see this in television. I was looking at the documentary, What We Left Behind.
Right. Yeah.
And whoever that exec from Paramount was, the
one with the tennis sweater tied around his shoulders.
Yeah.
That was Berman, right?
With the piano in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
But so, they asked him about this, about Avery Brooks' hair and all that. And do you remember a word he used was street?
Street, exactly.
It would be street. And I thought, wow, the audacity for him to say that. And I don't even know that when he said that he understood how he sounded, because
I think he did, because he didn't want to say it.
He didn't want to say it.
Right. And then he said, well, the word is streets. I was like, you knew what you were saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I don't even know what words would have been used back then.
Yeah.
When decisions were made. He probably thought he was being polite now. But so, that just gives you a sense of how hard it is to still just be Black, right? Because we're still, these days I'm reading a lot in Black studies, actually, number one, for my enjoyment and my edification, but number two, because I'm going to be writing about Star Trek and some different themes, but bringing it into dialogue with Black studies and critical race scholarship. But there's a Black studies scholar named Ronaldo Walcott, is based in Canada. And his latest book is very much in this vein of explaining that people get caught up in phrases like the post-civil rights, era, or, this idea that we're in, post-emancipation, that we're free, Black folks are free. And no, what we have in the aftermath of slavery is the prolongation of unfreedom for Black people. Different shades and different variations of unfreedom, but that is the extension of the situation we're still living with. And it shows up even in how you can wear your hair. I mean, and how you can, what you can adorn your body with. And so I think it was a big deal for Captain Sisko to be presented in the way that Avery Brooks, the Black man, the great actor playing him, wanted to play him. And I think that was a big deal.
Oh, it definitely made a difference. I think it made a difference in everything. The acting.
Yeah.
It felt like the storyline was even better. I don't know. It resonated better with me, and I'm pretty sure with a lot of other Black Trekkies, because it definitely we could definitely consider it Black Trek. I mean,
yes,
that's what it is. I mean,
I think he just looked. I mean, he's a very handsome man, but also I think his natural way of being is very attractive. So yes. I have to be honest. I'm an intellectual, yada yada. But when I watch Star Trek, I want fantasy. I want somebody to look good on my screen. I want there to be electricity between the characters. Yeah. And when Avery Brooks stepped down and he was like, "Bam!" I was like, "Yes, I'm here for it."
Yes.
All day long. My favorite scene is when Cassidy finally sees him with his bald head and she puts her hand. I was like,
yes.
That's for all of us.
That was for all of us.
That was for all of us.
I've lived through, and I love how she talked about that on in the documentary and What We Left Behind. Yes. I was like, yes, girl, we were all there with you. It was like that was my hand. All right. And I love, and Ira Stephen Bear also talked about, how, they didn't write the character of Sisko, as this experienced man with this power. They originally wrote this character as like more of a coming age story of a character going to step into that power. But here they got this fully developed man. So he always knew that Avery had to be a captain, and not a commander. I love the fact that he pointed that out and that he acknowledged that they knew that too. Yeah. Because you could definitely, there was a sense of feeling restrained and feeling shackles around him as we were watching it,
And so now that as you're talking, I'm thinking that maybe, although it wasn't intentional, looking back a couple of decades now, there's a power even in that the shift that we get to see the presentation of Sisko, constrained and not inhabiting himself the way he would like to naturally. And that shift when he gets in his zone, like if the show had started there, then it wouldn't have been a journey, right? So we got to go on that journey and to see it visually and to see it in the corporality of how Sisko's body and his face and his hair was presented. I think that's it's true to the actual process of how the character was developed and the relationship between the actor and the show production. But it also, I think, looking back, it's actually it's kind of nice that we can be a part of that. I think, yeah.
Yes, it's one of our favorite episodes where he finally gets that with Pip. And I love it. So should we go to the show that we want to talk to?
Yeah, I was just going to go there. Let's do it.
Yeah, because we could just stay here and talk about Avery all day long, but let's go right to the main show, and we want to talk about Far Beyond the Stars.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be, well, at least in our neck of the woods, it's every Black Trekkie's favorite that we know. And it's such an important episode. I wonder what thoughts you might have on that episode.
Well, I had heard so much about it even before I saw it. I kept telling people, don't tell me what happens. Don't tell me anything about Far Beyond. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And so when I finally saw it, I was blown away. I mean, I cry easily when I watch TV. So crying during DS9 or any episode of Trek is something that often happens. But I definitely shed some tears in Far Beyond the Stars. There's a lot. One of the things that struck me in that episode is this idea of Star Trek directly bringing anti-Black racism and this country's history of racism in particular to the foreground, and not letting it be the subtext, right, of having a Black captain, but to actually take you back in time, right? Time travel is it's such a frequent trope in Star Trek, right? I mean, right. All kinds of, right? But not like this, not like this. And, I'm kind of curious about how that episode might have been different with Black writers involved. Obviously Avery Brooks was very involved in the directing and all, but I do wonder a little bit about how the writing might have been different if it had been Black writers. But I do want to give them credit for even having used the time travel device in that way. Time and temporality is a like deep interest for me as a scholar. Like my first book was about France, was actually about the commemoration of slavery and the work that activists and ordinary people are doing today in France to bring attention to the slavery past and its connection to the present. So although they didn't talk a lot about slavery in that episode, anti-Blackness and racism and violence against Black men, Black boys, the idea of one day, we will be beyond this. That is something that a scholar you may have heard of, or you may know her work, Kimberly Crenshaw. She's a critical race scholar, but she also coined the term intersectionality. When I started tweeting about Trek some months ago, I came out to my followers. I was like, you know what? I love Star Trek. I just got to tell y'all. I've never talked about it publicly, but I got to tell y'all, I really love it. And then, she was really hype. She was letting me know, she's also into Star Trek. And some years ago, she'd actually given a talk about, not about Far Beyond the Stars, but about how Star Trek sometimes can actually be a part of a dynamic of racism that people don't talk enough about, which is sort of this idea that, kind of magical thinking about how we're all going to get over racism. The idea that there's going to be a utopia, or even within Star Trek that, in a couple of centuries, we're going to figure this out, which is absurd. But I think Far Beyond the Stars kind of has elements of both, right? On the one hand, elements of taking a look at the realities of racism, but also this aspiration and this desire that we will get over it, but the how is not explicated, right? There's nothing in the episode that explains how we're going to get over, centuries of violent anti-Black racism and white supremacy. There's nothing in the episode that explains that, right? Trek doesn't try to explain that, but it gets you wrapped up in this not just desire to overcome and transcend, but also this idea that there was, a vision that a Black writer, that within the creative imagination of a Black writer could exist a universe, an entire universe where anti-Blackness is no longer a factor. That is powerful. And to then get into the microdynamics of racism in the workplace, I think a lot of us can identify with.
Absolutely.
So it was a very powerful episode, of course.
Yeah, I also cry every time I watch it. Every time I watch that episode, and every time I watch The Visitor, I'm in tears.
What movie do you remember? Do you recall what scene or what in particular moves you to tears, or is it just the whole thing?
It's the whole thing cumulatively, but sometimes it's when Jake is getting beat down. That's usually when they start. And by the time we get to Avery's breakdown, in the office, I'm breaking down too, because of the weight of the history, because this history is written into our DNA. It's in the marrow of my bones, literally, so to watch something like, and I think I have a different sensory reaction to it than, say, my white friends watching it, who are also strongly affected by it. But I believe that, because it's the history of my people and because I'm carrying this history within me, it's visceral. I'm not empathizing, I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing about Far Beyond the Stars, just because it's talking about science fiction writing. I mean, we've had stories about Black people wanting to be writers, but this particular genre of writing is still something that people are, we have a book club right now where we're going through the Black sci-fi writers of, early ones like Samuel R. Delany, and we're talking about Stephen Barnes, and people haven't heard of these. They don't know this stuff. So that was the other layer in this that really got me. My brother is a sci-fi writer, and it just really was visceral for me to see Benny get beat down for writing something that, I used to see my brother writing his stories at 5 and 6 years old and drawing his pictures, when he finally got his book published. But that is even more so for me, that it was this kind of writing that was at the core of that episode.
Well, I think it's too, I'm sorry. Also, I know it's not the idea that we picturing ourselves, having the ability to picture ourselves in the future, to write ourselves into the history of the future. That's at that core of why sci-fi, right? Why this genre? Because if we can't envision ourselves in the future, what hope do we have, right? And even if other people don't see me there, mm-hmm. I've got to see myself there.
That is hugely important. The idea that Black people exist in the future, right? Far into the future, the persistence of Blackness. And I think sometimes people might not realize, you rewind the clock 100 years, W.B. Du Bois, one of the founding sociologists and one of the greatest intellectuals of the 20th century, he was working and living and writing at a time when it was common for scientists to argue, racist scientists to argue, that Black people were going to disappear. They believed and they argued that people of African descent were going to go extinct. This was an accepted and taught and promulgated belief among scientists. And so, first of all, that is not true, number one, but also Black people had to insist on our persistence in the face of scientists writing us out of existence, and in the face of colonial forms of violence, anti-Black racism and structural forms of violence that were trying to make us disappear. And so, and some would argue that, those forms of violence and that intent to disappear Black people has not ended. And so it is super powerful in that episode to have a Black sci-fi writer, number one, to your point, Sabrina, but also this insistence on Black life beyond, right, far beyond the present moment. I think that's incredibly powerful. Even if we don't know, how it all happens and how we get from here to there, the intent and the vision, and Benny Russell's insistence that, I don't remember the exact quote, but that his ideas were real, that they carried reality, right? Even in the face of those who were trying to negate his existence and the reality of his ideas. I mean, I think that's what made me lose it, what got me crying.
Yeah, right.
It was visceral in his performance, and everyone knows, you watch the documentary, they talk about how Avery Brooks, himself and lost himself in that scene, and stayed on the ground for a while. And, you know, I don't know what made him get back up, but it was real for him.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched that so many times that probably the scene when he's on the ground at the end, I'm probably, you know, it gets me, but I think I don't get there until that scene, because I've seen that. I love that show. I love that episode, but that, you know, that scene, those scenes are played everywhere. You know, we've seen them for years. They're in books that we've read. They're in every Brewster Sisters. You know, they're in every so-called Black show that we see. That kind of scene that, you know, the Black guy is going to get beat up or he's wrongly accused. You know, it's always there. But I like Sisko on the ground, knowing it's Sisko, because he's my captain, and him just unable to get up, and the rawness of that's what gets me. I think it's more of, because I know that Sisko, Benny is Sisko to me. He's not Benny, you know, so that's what gets me, is that my captain is on the ground because of these things that are going on, and even he can't surmount this. You know, all of this crap that we deal with every day. He's still, you know, it's still there. It's still something that we're still fighting for. And I think that's what gets me every time I see that. And it always gets me at the very, very end, you know, when I know he's not getting up. And I've seen it tons of times, but it's just that part where he's just like, you know, just down. And I know he's not, I'm like, whew, you know, it's that kind of thing. And I think, it takes me a while afterward. I cannot watch another episode after that one. I always take a break. I do the same thing when they kill Jadzia. I take a break.
I'm still so mad about that.
Right.
So there's a lot of that where I think DS9, especially if you watch it a lot of times, because you see more, you process more, and then you have to go, okay, I need a break from this for a minute, because I got to process some of these shows, some of these episodes I just saw. And then, you know, I'll go and watch maybe Enterprise or something. No offense, Sabrina.
The way they killed Jadzia was so disrespectful.
That was disrespectful.
It was so disrespectful. And
there was no need for that.
They did her so dirty.
They did her dirty.
They really did. They really did. I mean, imagine like 20 years later still being pissed about it. That's me, you know, because I mean, I love Jadzia. I love Major Kira the most, like as women on the show, and that I got to relate with every time I got to see the show. But Jadzia was my girl, because they were starting to write her as a really kick-ass woman.
Yeah.
You know, and she was one of, you know, so I was like, great, I have two kick-ass women on this show, you know, and yeah. It still makes me mad.
She was good with Worf. It was I enjoyed that relationship. I thought she brought out in Worf aspects of his personality and even his manhood that I don't know that any of us knew was there. I mean, he like blossomed with Jadzia. But they, you know, the documentary actually seen the actress Terry Farrell. She was still so upset, and I thought her vulnerability in, you know, being public and open with how hurt and upset she still was, clearly as a fan, it had me in my feelings. I'm still mad about our girl.
Didn't even go down on a mission. She
I
went
know,
down
right?
In the temple.
In the temple. Like, just like, come on now. She
and how do
should
you
have gone
think
out with some
Mark
Klingons.
Alamo felt about it? He had to kill
Mark
her.
Alamo.
Mark Alamo. He had to kill her. He's like, why do I have to do it? People hate him to this day because of that, but you know.
Well, I think they hate him for more than that.
People hate him for more than I think one of the things that I wanted to sort of get into a little bit was similarly between Deep Space Nine and with Discovery, with Later Trek, one of the, to me, seems like a veiled racist attack on these shows, that they're too dark, you know, and that people want to, and you hear this, well, you used to hear it a lot before a lot of the Trek community really started to rally and recognize that they have to speak up, because we have these really negative vocal minority of very negative people who were, always talking about, I don't want politics in my Trek, or, I expect Trek is about the utopia and the hope that there is, and again, going back to what you brought up, like how do you get to this supposed utopia? That people didn't want that in their conversation. They wanted original Trek, they wanted their white captain and the trio, and that's it. They didn't want to deal with repercussions of like any of our starships encountering other cultures, and changes that might have made to these cultures. They didn't want to deal with any thoughts about, it's not pretty getting to utopia. It's a hard struggle, and I see that paralleled in both of these shows.
The idea of utopia, first of all, I think when I came to DS9 and I started to get back into Trek, I sort of took for granted, again, having kind of come up on TNG in particular, that Star Trek was representing a utopia. But looking back, and not just at DS9, I think we have to even look at the original series, DS9, and the other franchises. But we have to say, was it ever a utopia? We have endless war. We have, enemy races. We have, genocide and atrocities. And it didn't just start with DS9.
No.
I think there definitely is a different tone and a different way of showing darkness and evil in DS9. But I don't think if you have warfare, in the 23rd, 24th century, I don't think that's a utopia.
I think the utopia was more of the Federation, or more of Earth. Earth was the utopia. That's what they were portraying. I don't think the utopia was out in the stars.
Okay.
Because I think Utopia was supposed to be the Federation and Earth. Because Sisko made that comment on one of the episodes. Earth is perfect.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no complaints about Earth because everything is there, everything you need. But then you go out into these stars, and you have to deal with people who don't want to be part of the Federation, who don't want to hear anything from humans. They don't like the Ferengi. I like my money. You keep your non-money. I want my money.
But I guess what I'm saying is, and I hear you, but even if we go with the idea that, Earth becomes some utopia, the Federation's doing great. If the Federation is imperiled and it has to try to protect Earth from all these enemies, that's still not a utopic universe. So even the existence of menace, the existence of evil, the existence of war in the expanse of the cosmos, I think we were never in a utopia to begin with, number one. Number two, from the perspective of a lot of scholars in Black studies, and definitely critical race scholarship too, we learned that we need to be suspicious of the idea of utopia at all. Because particularly as we see it in popular culture, but also in Star Trek, and in the wider sort of Western culture more generally, the idea of a linear progression, right, of humanity getting better and better and perfecting itself, of social systems being able to become perfect, that's actually one of the core ideas at the heart of white supremacy. When we go back, in Star Trek, we have the eugenics wars, right? Well, eugenics starts in the West as a practice of scientific perfection, survival of the fittest, while trying to breed out groups that are considered unfit and less than, whether they're racially inferior or whether, ableism is a huge part of eugenics, trying to breed out people with disabilities, people who are considered less intelligent. All of this is kind of, a part of modern Western racist thought. And so if we kind of rewind before the last several hundred years, and we sit with the reality that in civilizations all around the world, there have been alternative ways of thinking about community and time. Well, we're not necessarily thinking about linear progression, but we might be thinking of cycles, right? We might not be thinking of being perfect. We might be thinking of living in harmony and balance. So I think it's important to be skeptical of the idea of utopia, not only because, the hard work of actually explaining how do you get rid of all bad things is pretty considerable, but also, it's again, the idea of a utopia and linear progression and linear perfectibility has been something that has been right at the center of racism for a long time. And it's also why I think, a lot of Star Trek fans and science fiction fans who are white don't necessarily want to question some of these things, because it requires not just thinking about, well, the future might not be as great as we imagine it could be. It also means looking right now at the horrible atrocities and inequalities and violences that are still very much happening on an ongoing everyday basis.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that being a Star Trek fan can be work sometimes, and I think that there's a whole nother fan base out there that is for people who don't want to do this work, this heavy lifting. I think once you declare yourself a Star Trek fan, and you buy into the philosophies involved, surround in the franchise and the community that surrounds the franchise, that you're really buying into, a philosophy of trying to live a different way of life and trying to do work on being better or growing stronger or becoming, more of a cohesive community of peoples, and like I said, there's a whole nother franchise, and if you just want to stick to stories of good and evil, it's out there for you. That's it. That's as good as it's going to get. Okay.
It's definitely a conversation after, once you start getting into the whole universe, I love everything you just said. I like that. I had to think about that. I was like, wow, that is really eugenics. When you pointed that out, I was like, that is exactly what is going on, But yeah, there's a lot to it. I've always wanted a Star Trek series that has something to do with what happened after the eugenics war. How did Earth get to where it is? Because they do talk about certain things, and I read a lot of the books, and one of the books is telling us that it was the continent who got everybody together, because they didn't want anything to do with everybody else because they were in war. So they united, because that's where Uhura is supposed to be.
The continent of Africa, you mean? Continent
of United States of Africa. And they're the ones that started the Earth getting unified. So I would love for more information on that to come out, because there's a lot that they could do with that.
Seems like
this is the best
calls
time
for
to
a black
do it.
writer. This calls for somebody to get busy.
It would be an amazing series of books, of films, television show. I mean, the idea of Africa, right, which is where we all come from,
right,
the birthplace of human civilization. It would be very interesting to see that represented as the place where humanity redeems itself in the wake of the eugenics wars. I think that would be.
But it makes so much sense. Why wouldn't it be Africa?
It better be Africa. Because
it should be.
There's no future for, I feel there's no future for our species without Africa and African people flourishing.
Right. I agree.
And we have a long way to go before the violences of colonialism that continue to target not just people still on the continent of Africa, but the African diaspora globally, right? We have a long way to go to even be truthful about what is still happening. And I think that goes back to this question of utopia and idealism. And I think the reality is, I mean, listen, Star Trek is entertainment.
Yeah.
A lot of people want their entertainment to give a sense of escapism. I know I do at times. I just want, I mean, listen, you know, shit is rough sometimes. You
That's
just
right.
want something to make you, you know, feel like you're somewhere else.
Right.
And I think, you know, at least for me as a Black woman, as a Black queer woman, you know, even my escapism, I still live within the realities of these, you know, systems of oppression. So I can still tolerate, and in fact, I want even my escapism to have some realism in it. And I think for others who live within certain systems of privilege, you know, the capacity and the capaciousness to be able to sit with that complexity. I think that you get so much in DS9, right? That gray, and not just, you know, they're good guys and bad guys, but no, you know, it's complex, and there's not always a happy ending. One thing I wanted to ask you all, and maybe you've already discussed it on the show, but do you think at the end of DS9 that Sisko, the emissary, becomes a magical Negro?
Oh my God. Were you looking at my notes? Were you looking at my notes? That
Only
was going
the
to be my
prophets
question
can tell
to
us.
you.
Only the prophets can
Right.
tell us.
That's my answer. That is always what only the prophets know.
Oh, that
Well,
was
but really, what do you think? Is he a magical Negro at that point? Because kind of seems like it.
I mean, he slips into there. I also wrote down, you know, does he become, are they trying to place him as a Messiah figure? You know, I mean, like, I don't know, because we don't spend all of the time on Deep Space Nine with him operating as a magical Negro. He doesn't come back and magically solve anybody's problems, you know? And so, you know, that's what, for those reasons, I'm thinking, not magical Negro yet, but certainly he's set up to become magical Negro.
If there was a season 8.
Right.
They opened the door and we said, nah, I don't think that's where we want to go.
Would he get some, you know, gain some Q type of knowledge about the manipulation of time and space and matter and energy, and be able to point a finger and fix something, or take you back into time, or, you know, like,
sounds like Picard season 2.
Oh, that's right. We might get answers to these questions.
I know we might.
Our magical Negro.
Are you
but
watching?
You know, I think a lot of the series he was resisting that role. And I'm trying to remember, was it some interview I saw with Avery Brooks? I don't know if it was a clip in the Captain's documentary, if it was something else, but he seemed to be saying that something along the lines, to paraphrase, that an African is sort of always kind of associated with spirituality. And I think what was unsaid was in the Western imaginary. And I wonder about that for Deep Space Nine, if in the right, like, why was I also write in my work about spirituality, and I'm into spirituality, and I like that part of DS9, but it is curious that the first Black captain that we see, right, is from the beginning, episode 1, being called to connect with the prophets. You know, and even for him to have to resist that, like, Picard never had to deal with that. Did Kirk have to I mean, they didn't have to deal with, like, a spiritual role being thrust upon them. And you have that in DS9. And by the end of it, I mean, what is his status? Is he a prophet? Like, I really don't even know what he is. We see him dive into the fiery depths, and then right, like you said, is it a Messiah kind of resurrection? Is he a being now that transcends time? Which we get in that line to Cassidy, when he says something like, she's like, are you coming back or something? And he says something like, maybe yesterday.
Maybe yesterday, maybe a year from now.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what?
Somebody tell me that. I'm going to be upset. Maybe yesterday.
Yesterday.
Right.
Well, and I think this is why I love Burnham so much, because for the first time we do have a Black person and a Black woman in that captain seat, and she doesn't have, some alien thing or some super eyes or she's the emissary. This is just a badass sister. And I can't wait to see the Ready Room. Is anybody else really anxious to see?
I want to see it all.
Wait.
I just want to see it all from episode 1 to whatever.
Yeah.
I just give it to me.
Can't wait.
I just want to see it. Yeah.
Like you were saying,
seeing
fully human.
Yeah, right. Fully human. She's fully human, finally.
Right.
And I just want to see, and listening to everyone react to this, we did a show comparing Burnham to Kirk. And we said, she basically does the same stuff Jimbo does, but you get bent out of shape about it because the sister's doing it. But she's really Jim Kirk.
They're contemporaries.
Yeah,
so
they are
the same type of captains or
from
commanders.
It's from the same Kobayashi Maru. They both took the test at the same pretty much time. But
one day I love Michael Burnham. Discovery. I'm super excited about the new season. One day, can we have a series where a Black woman, a Black somebody is the captain from episode 1?
Episode 1. Thank you.
We don't have to work for it.
Right.
We don't have to go to prison.
Yeah.
Don't have,
Thank you.
Yeah. And can we talk about this? What is with the manacles? Why do they always want to put a sister in some manacles before
Lower Decks?
When Lower Decks did that, I just want to say,
because we finally got a sister who is actually a captain already.
Yep.
And then here we go again. She's in manacles.
I have not seen Lower Decks yet, but I saw the image. No, okay. I've already seen. I follow Trek people, so I saw the image of this Black woman in chains. I was like, oh no, they didn't.
Yes, they
did.
And
y'all are listening, y'all need to stop putting Black people and Black women in chains.
This is what we're talking about.
Or sweat boxes, or let's see, what else have they done?
Or killing them.
Right? Hello, Picard writers. Again, we told you, Picard writers, you're on blast. Picard writers, if you're listening, and we know you are.
We know you are.
We already put you on blast about killing all your Black representing people on your show within the first 2 minutes of seeing them.
Right.
Except for Raffi.
Raffi's the only one.
Raffi's the only one. And you didn't kill her son or the grandbaby, but he sure is hell not in this show. We don't have a relationship with Raffi and her son anymore, so we don't get to see him, so it doesn't count. I'm telling you, can we get it? Can we get it, please? We put it. I mean, I love Star Trek. This is why we put you on blast, Star Trek people, because we're supposed to be getting better.
Now, I just related to this, but I have to ask y'all because I feel like this is the perfect group of folk who can tell me and guide me in what I should do. So,
maybe
Lower Decks, right? People tell me that I need to watch Voyager, which is another show. I still don't want to watch Voyager. I watched the first episode the other day. I was so mad. It was so bad. I don't know if y'all are Voyager stans. It was the first episode. It was a Southern farm. There was no Black people there. It was so bad. Anyway. And the wigs. When I see the wigs in that first episode of Voyager, everybody's hair is messed up. Nobody's hairline. It gets better. Okay, they said. So the question is, do I need to watch Voyager before watching Lower Decks?
No.
I can dive right in.
Well, maybe Prodigy you could watch before. You need to watch Voyager before watching Prodigy, maybe, because Janeway is in that one. But Lower Decks, I don't see why you would have to.
No, because Prodigy is set up for people to learn about Star Trek.
Yeah.
So you can watch Prodigy without seeing anything.
Okay.
So it's because it's set up for kids to learn about what's going on with the Federation, Star Trek, Starfleet, so you don't need anything for Prodigy.
And Lower Decks, I don't have to watch. Okay, do you
listen? If you don't want to watch Voyager, don't.
Right. Do you think I should? Should I suffer
Voyager's all right. Voyager's all right.
Here's the thing.
Voyager's fine.
Voyager is really not that bad of a show. It's not. Like, I have a lot of Voyager love now. I mean, they had some great stories, and Kate Mulgrew as a captain really got to do some kick-ass stuff. And she was a woman of science and reasoning until you pushed that last button, and she was like, "Look, damn it, I tried to be nice about it."
Yeah, season 4, she ain't taking no more nonsense.
I got to
she's
take my
done.
earrings off.
She's done in season 4.
It has.
It has B'Elanna. It has B'Elanna, so you have to watch it for B'Elanna Torres.
Oh, okay. So Janeway's not a Karen? Because they gave her Karen hair in the first episode, and I said, I don't know.
So it's an issue. The hair is an issue.
She didn't even like it.
It seemed like it's an issue with all women, all of Star Trek. There's a hair
because
issue.
They had a bunch of men who were the ones making decisions about how these people are supposed to look, and they were to appeal to our audience, or we think, like, because they didn't know how to respect a woman in a position
in real life.
Right. And especially not a position of power.
Yeah,
especially not a position of power. Yeah.
So
but
I think
what I'm asking is, what kind of white woman is Captain Janeway? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
It gets she's also progressing, as she goes on. I don't know. I think if you look at her
let me ask this a different way.
Today's lens.
Invited to the barbecue. What kind of white woman is Captain Janeway? Could she come to the barbecue? She's not going to come to the barbecue.
First of all, she don't want to come.
There you go. Yeah. She don't want to. That's exactly
she's not. She's just not gonna want to come. She's doing something else, she is a Starfleet captain.
Okay.
And you could take that anywhere you want. It's just that she's trying to help these people get to where they gotta go. She's very focused. I mean, I think she's just different from the rest of them.
Do you even consider her white?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, definitely.
Okay. No, I mean, in the future.
No, she's a white woman that's a captain of a starship, but I don't think there's any leeway there. That's who she is.
I would say, the Karen issue about her is that when she does pop off, she's got the backing. I mean,
she backs it up.
She has the right. She could back it up. A Karen, in my opinion, is somebody that's going to pop off and say some stupid shit, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they don't really know who they're talking to. Right. So they're just talking. They're just saying stuff because they think that they are self-important, and they think that they're all this, and that they can have whatever they want to have because they're white and they're right. Right. But I think Janeway, even though she is white and she did have that bun, she got rid of it. I think she's the real deal. And even though she gets on my last freaking nerve a lot of times, I can't be take it sometimes. I'm like, golly, can we just not go see what the anomaly is doing and just get home?
Can we just go home?
Can we just go home? Like, look.
But that's whiteness too, right? Like, let's go look
at
this
thing. That's what I told you.
like we have an objective here. Yeah, but we're here to explore. Like, we are 30,000 years from home. That is the primary objective now.
Right.
But I think also, though,
that's my little defense.
In a Janeway defense, she asks questions. Janeway asks questions. She might ignore the hell out of Chakotay, though. I mean, he's her first officer, and she never takes Chakotay's advice. Like, never, ever. And so it's like, that gets annoying, too. And there's a weird dynamic between her and Chakotay.
Tuvok.
Well, no, I'm just talking about her and Chakotay right now. Because he is her first in command, her second in command, but I don't know if she really respects him.
I don't think so.
you know, and so there's Karenism in that aspect of Janeway. I think she's complicated. I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think it's a,
well, maybe maybe I'll give her a try.
I think, I think try to
check it.
I think, for me, okay, so for me, like I'm gonna watch, because it's Star Trek, I'm gonna watch it.
I'm watching
regardless, regardless. But I always take some of the stuff even with a grain of salt still, and I don't try to analyze it through my knowledge now often, because like you said, like it is my entertainment in so many ways, and I just needed to be that for a while, like I can't, because it is my cup of tea on a hot day. I mean, on my hot cup of tea on a cold day, like I need to let it be that for me. Right. Sometimes I can go there, but and they have a lot of Voyager fans that we know who are adamant about their Voyager fandom, and Janeway is their captain, and that's all good. And I think that there's some great things, some great episodes in Voyager. Like and rewatching it now, I really came to respect a lot of these episodes. It's not my favorite Trek, but I'm not going to throw it under the bus either. But she's not coming to the cookout, but she's not a terrible person either.
I was already warned not to watch some lizard episode on Voyager. They said don't watch the lizard. Do you know what?
It's a silly episode.
Silly.
She talked about
the Warp 10 one.
When Janeway and Paris
have babies,
devolve, or what, had the babies,
you gotta watch
the
that
lizard
just
babies.
for the laugh. I mean, that's just hilarious.
So I say watch it because now you know what the joke is about.
Yeah.
So now you get the joke.
And going back to Lower Decks, I mean, that's the only, it's just to have fun, like to know it, to have that extra level of joke on Lower Decks, that's the only reason that you would want to watch it, anything before watching. You don't need to watch it before Lower Decks. Lower Decks is still funny, even without relying on all the Star Trek lore humor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
To me.
I agree too.
Believe me, Crystal, it took me a while to come around to Lower Decks because I just was like,
really?
Oh, please. Yeah.
But to go back to Lower Decks, though, like they better, Mike McMahon, if you're listening,
and we know you are,
you better have a good reason to have Captain Freeman in some shackles. I already put you on blast on Twitter.
Because you just got me over and then you lost me.
So we're getting on in time. So I want to bring us back because I know that you've got to go soon. And, I really appreciate all the time that you've spent talking to us about Deep Space Nine, about Trek in general, and helping us to see it through a different lens, which a lot of us are not looking at, especially us older generation of Trek fans. We didn't come up with intersectionality. We didn't come up with big words to describe what we were going through. We came up just, it was like, and one of the reasons that I appreciate you so much. And we forgot to do this at the top of the show. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Noor, our best friend in the world, for putting us together with you. Muhammad, you're the best.
Hi, Muhammad.
Love you.
BioTrekkie, y'all. If y'all are not watching the BioTrekkie on YouTube, you better get with it because
wonderful.
He will tell you why they're black Klingons
and black Andorians
and black Andorians. But Lord, I forgot what I was going to say.
We didn't have intersectionality when we were growing up.
Yes.
This is what I was going to say. Yeah. So what I love about your work in particular, though, and what I have read of your work and how I came to know you through different op-eds and stuff, especially what I call the Summer of Reckoning, when we were all entranced with the trial and, and we were protesting and everything, is that you make big words and big concepts very relatable for people, and I really appreciate that because oftentimes academics get lost in academia and have a really hard time communicating ideas to anybody else that's not going to use a $5 word, and I don't see the point in actually studying anything if you can't communicate it to anybody. So I really do appreciate that. And so I think though that's serving you really well with this new book that you just released, right? Rise Up, because you're addressing young adults in this book, right?
Yeah. So here's the book, Rise Up. There we go. Rise Up, How You Can Join the Fight Against White Supremacy. And yeah, it's my first book for young people. I think, 12 to 18-year-olds, but honestly, people of all ages. It's a book where I try to take the reader on a journey to understand the roots of systemic racism, why we're still dealing with it today. So you see the connection between the past and the present, but also really importantly, the stories of folks, including and especially Black folks, Indigenous people and people of color, and white allies and accomplices who have been standing up and pushing back and rising up against white supremacy for generations. So the aim is to educate, but also inspire with stories of resistance, and to help young people, and again, people of all ages, to really kind of have a roadmap for understanding what it means to practice anti-racism and challenge racism in your everyday life. So I'm excited. The book is finally out, and I hope it's a good resource for educators, community members, and folks who are looking to better understand and rise up against racism.
I can't wait to get it. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Can't wait. No, I'm just going to say we'll have all the information on how to get Dr. Fleming's books in the notes. So if you are, just make sure you check and click and go get the book.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek is mentioned in the book.
Nice.
Let you know it's in there. There's an Easter egg. Look.
I see. That's what I was going to say, because I think Star Trek writers might you might have a resource to use for developing new storylines, y'all.
Yeah. No, I mean, we want to see representation. We don't just want representation, right? We want perspectives and images on our screens that are challenging the status quo and giving us something new. We want also more Black writers and directors and creators, and we're producers more, and producers. Yeah. So we need to disrupt, right, the system where white men have been telling the stories they want to tell. And we need to have more than inclusion. We need stories that challenge the status quo and give us new possibilities.
I'm
so about it. I know, right? I'm so about it. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this has been, I feel like I could just talk to you all night. It's lovely to hear your perspectives. They really make me think a lot of times. I think I know something, and then you ask a challenging question, and I realize, like, I haven't thought about that. And that's the greatest gift. So we appreciate you. We thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. And I feel the same way listening to the SyFy Sistas podcast. You make me think about things in new ways. I learn a lot from you, and I appreciate your show so much. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Hey, Yvette.
Yeah.
It's that time. You want to tell folks how they can reach us and talk to us about anything that they heard, if they have ideas or thoughts about what they heard in the show?
Sure. You can find us at SyFySistas.com. That's SyFySistas.com. Join us on the mothership. That's MUTHASHIP. And the SyFy Sistas Book Club, both on Facebook. Download the Trek Geeks Network app, where you can find us and our family of podcasts on the Trek Geeks Network. On Instagram, syfy.sistas, and we are also on the Twitter at SyFy Sistas. After listening to this podcast, please rate us and write a review. We may just read it on an upcoming episode.
And Dr. Fleming, where can people look for you on Twitter? Because I know you're super Twitter active.
You can also find me on the Twitter. So my handle is always the self, and you can learn more about my work at crystalfleming.com. Latest book, like we heard, is called Rise Up. Before that, How to Be Less Stupid About Race. And yeah, I mean, I'm just so thrilled to be in conversation with you, and look forward to, listen, anytime you want to talk Trek, Holla at me on
Yes.
Twitter, or I'd love to
Yay.
come back literally anytime. So thank you so much
Awesome.
for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here. And we want to say, send a shout out to the baddest engineer in the universe, Dose the Anonymous One. Dose. You can find him if you can find him at dosetheanonymous1@gmail.com. That's DOSTHEANONYMOUS, the number 1 @gmail.com. He has an Instagram now too, right?
Yes.
What's that? Do you remember?
In the notes.
In the notes.
Dose.
Yeah, the notes.
Look for Dose. I think it's Dose _
Underscore
I
one.
think
It's
Dose
Dose the
_
Anonymous One. Look for Dose the Anonymous One on Instagram. Dose, I'm sorry, please forgive
It'll be
me.
in the notes.
But he's awesome, and if you need engineering services or musical beats or anything, he's the one to look for. Y'all, we love you. We thank you so much. We are deeply honored that you all choose to spend some time with us. So we'll see you next time. Peace, love, and hair grease.
Hey, y'all. Are you looking for that perfect holiday or birthday gift for that special geek in your life? Why not check out the world's first app-enabled Tribble from Jay and Kalia at Science Division. These soft and cuddly fuzz buckets actually trill for friends and squeal at Klingons. Adopt your Tribble today at Science Division. That's sciencediv.com. Science Division. By fans, for fans. Trouble's never been this fun.